everyone. Muneeb here. Really excited to be sharing some of the things over here. And I feel like when we were thinking about stacks and betting on Bitcoin in 2025, where my mind went was Bitcoin is such a large asset class, and it's something that's going to be around 100 plus years from now. And I think any leading Bitcoin L2, which right now it stacks, and we think it is going to be stacks years and decades from now, in many ways we have a large responsibility because our actions, our plans, our roadmaps are actually going to determine how billions of people around the world end up using Bitcoin, how Bitcoin DeFi grows. And I think we take that responsibility very seriously. So personally, I think when Nakamoto and SBDC launched, everyone here in the community knows how big of an event they were, how hard and how long people worked on it. But that was also a time to start reflecting what's next. What's the next big growth unlock for stacks? Where do we go from here? What are the type of technologies that are really needed that we need to build, or other changes or evolutions in the ecosystem that we need to work on to be able to unlock that? So I think we're going to talk about some of that today. I'm going to cover some topics, and then I'm going to hand over to other leaders in the ecosystem who will come in and walk through it. First of all, I'm just going to give a little bit of a recap. I know a lot of community members might be familiar with the state of stacks, but I think there are a lot of new people as well, and we want to make sure we bring them up to speed. So the first thing is, what's our core thesis? I think our core thesis is that Bitcoin is just different. It's a different asset class. It's here to stay, and it's actually separating itself from everything else. If you look at the Bitcoin to gold dominance, that graph looks insane. If you look at the Bitcoin hash rate, it's just going through the roof continuously. And I think the Bitcoin's use of energy is now actually becoming a really positive thing and something that's actually pushing technology forward. We have seen more than $100 billion come into Bitcoin ETFs, but the chart that's the most interesting to me personally is actually the Bitcoin dominance chart. If you look at how Ethereum is sort of like nosediving in dominance and Bitcoin is going up, the key thing is that if you look at the middle line, where the rest of the projects, this is all the other L1s and L2s and so on, that's actually a much bigger category now compared to 5 years ago. There's so many new projects, like, new projects keep getting launched every quarter, every other month or so on, right? But Bitcoin dominance is actually increasing compared to that highly competitive market of L1s and L2s. And I think that's just outstanding, which means the Bitcoin is separating itself from everything else. And Stacks is laser focused. We're not trying to compete with anybody else. We're just trying to be the best Bitcoin L2, the place where people can use their Bitcoin in the most seamless way, in the most secure way, and is as aligned and deeply integrated with Bitcoin as it possibly can be. So I think that's our core thesis. This is why we are here. This is what we want to enable. And what it takes is there's actually a very hard, almost like a holy grail technical challenge behind why we haven't seen hundreds of billions of dollars deployed in BTC, why Bitcoin is not programmable, why it's hard to upgrade it. Almost think of that as a triangle. There are three sides to it. One is obviously security, that we want Bitcoin in L2s to be fully secured by Bitcoin. Think of Lightning almost, right? Like your Bitcoin in Lightning is actually pretty secure. You can withdraw it anytime you want. That's called unilateral withdrawal or self-custody. And it is backed by 100% Bitcoin hash power when the Lightning channels actually settle. So that's security. That's one part of the triangle. But the Bitcoin in Lightning is not programmable at all. SBDC is programmable. Like most of you have used SBDC, you know how amazing it is to just deploy SBDC into smart contracts, how program it, build different sort of like applications around it, and so on. So SBDC has that property, but it has a signer set. It has a decentralized signer set that it relies on. And the third thing is great UX. So for Lightning, there are channel capacity issues, there are routing issues, you can't send large amounts, you might sort of like run out of liquidity and so on. It's kind of like generally clunky. SBDC has much better UX, but still there can be improvements, like for example, paying fees just in Bitcoin, right? So those are the three things. And for 10 plus years, this has been a holy grail challenge where people have been trying to work on this, that how do we square this triangle and give people all three things? And I don't think this has been possible so far. So I have a really interesting announcement here that the Stacks ecosystem, the brainiacs that are here, the research scientists, we've had a major technical breakthrough. It's at an early stage. We will be releasing a preview / light paper about it later this week, likely on Friday. But it's at an early stage right now. But it looks like we have squared this triangle where we can have self-custodial Bitcoin when Bitcoin is at rest, meaning it's in your wallet on the L2, and when you're doing payments, imagine Lightning style payments. And when you move that Bitcoin into smart contracts, the security properties change. But I'll talk a little bit more about how over there we can do better than just trusting a signer set. So this is a rough comparison. I think the most advanced system out there would be BitVM2. And I think BitVM2 does give you programmability, but it has a lot of UX challenges, like in terms of liquidity providers and how to get your Bitcoin in and out and how long you have to wait, and so on. And I think our solution in terms of the UX side of it is actually much, much cleaner. You depend much less on other liquidity providers and generally get a much better user experience. So this is big news. The geek in me is actually pretty excited about it. We can't wait to share more details. But at a high level, I will sort of like describe what it is. So let's dive in a little bit, right? So right now, when you take Bitcoin from the L1 and deposit it in the form of SBDC into Stacks L2, it's always one-to-one backed. There is a decentralized group of signers in the middle, and you're sort of trusting them whenever you want to withdraw your Bitcoin. But once Bitcoin is in the Stacks L2, it's fully programmable. You can easily send it around, use it for payments and all that, that's there. So with this upgrade, and we don't have a name for that yet, I feel like Stacks Nakamoto upgrade was an amazing name. So I think we'll run some sort of a branding exercise with the community to come up with a great name for this next big upgrade for Stacks and SBDC. It's likely going to be a combined upgrade for both Stacks and SBDC, probably rolled out in multiple steps. But excited about brainstorming about what name we can give this upgrade. So what would happen with this is that when you will mint your SBDC, you can do that in a fully self-custodial way, meaning you own the underlying Bitcoin on the L1 and you own SBDC in your wallet. If you want to withdraw it, you don't need to trust anyone. No signers, no bridges, nothing in the middle. There's no issues with liquidity providers or whatever. It's fully self-custodial. You want to withdraw, the underlying Bitcoin would basically unlock for you because it was always in your self-custody. And I think that's huge. Same thing with payments. If I want to pay Kyle on the L2, I can make that payment, and it's like a Lightning payment almost. Just like, Lightning has unconfirmed transactions and they can get confirmed when a channel settles. Pretty much in a similar way, you can do these fully self-custodial payments. But it's 100x better in Lightning in terms of UX because there's no channel capacity issues. You don't have to worry about routing. I can send $10 in BTC. I can send $1 million in BTC. I can send $100 million in BTC. It will always go through, fully reliable and super fast. And I think we can even add paying fees in Bitcoin with this as well. And I'll talk about it a little bit. So that's exciting, super exciting. I think this is a big challenge that people have been facing, and you'll see more details coming out in the preview / light paper this Friday. Okay, so what happens now when you put this SBDC, this self-custodial SBDC, into smart contracts? Now, the smart contract actually owns the Bitcoin, right? So the underlying Bitcoin has to move from your self-custody to somewhere else. And right now, the default is that for a smart contract, the decentralized signer set of SBDC actually owns the underlying Bitcoin. But we think we can do better than that. And when we're calling that post conditions, so think of post conditions as a programmable underlying Bitcoin script where developers can actually direct, the smart contracts can actually direct where should the underlying Bitcoin go. And there could be more precise conditions for how that Bitcoin can actually move. So for example, in a lending application, the smart contract can actually define liquidation conditions. that the Bitcoin can only go to this address and only if a liquidation happens on the L2 contract. Meaning that instead of blindly trusting a signer set, you have a much narrow, much more precise way of defining how the underlying Bitcoin can move. And I think that's very exciting. So we have a great sort of like, trustless way of having Bitcoin at rest, Bitcoin in payments. And then for smart contracts, we're trying to do as best as we can by making the underlying Bitcoin very, very precise using these post conditions. And I think that's going to unlock a lot of new use cases. One of the biggest ones, and this is likely the one we'll work on first, is with SBDC. A lot of institutions have been saying that we want to mint SBDC, but we have a fiduciary requirement to only do it through a custodian where there is a segregated address, meaning that they don't want to mix their funds with everybody else. They want to have the funds remain on their own address with a custody provider like BitGo or Hex. And that directly addresses it. So our technical breakthrough directly addresses the demand in the market where the large institutions are saying, this is what we need. We want a separate address, almost like a self-custody address through which they can mint. And I think that actually opens up the door to institutional capital, a lot of Bitcoin capital that can come into Stacks this way. And I think that's actually very, very exciting. So how does that translate into the roadmap? So today we are actually going to do a full walkthrough of the roadmap. Stacks is releasing its roadmap for 2025 and beyond. But I'll just give you like a high-level preview right now. So we're already working on supporting more custody providers so that institutions can actually come in. And the SBDC cap right now is at 3,000 BTC, so roughly $300 million in Bitcoin capital. And this Thursday, the cap is going to 5,000 BTC, and we'll see sort of like how quickly that fills up. But that is $500 million in Bitcoin potentially deposited on Stacks, right? So I think we're reaching levels where it's becoming more significant. And I think another interesting thing, and this is like apples to oranges, because the Bitcoin and Lightning is different, it's channel capacity, but I think at 5,000 BTC, you'll likely flip Lightning as well. And SBDC has only been around for 3-4 months, which actually shows strong traction that a lot of people want to use this product because it's actually a really good product that gives users what they want. I already mentioned how we are doing R&D on this next major upgrade for SBDC that can do self-custodial minting and all these things. And for the rest of the year, we are really focused on enabling the DeFi use cases around BTC. We want to get to more than $1 billion in TBL. Right now, we're sitting at around 100 million. There are a bunch of works like tier 1 stablecoins, bridges, and so on. That's going to help us first get to 250, and then we'll grow from there. But that's a goal we have in the ecosystem right now. On a parallel track, we take faster speeds and reliability of the Stacks L2 extremely seriously. So you're going to see constant improvements on the reliability, on the speed, and there are potential proposals for PUX improvements through consensus as well. I won't be able to cover all of these things in detail. You're going to hear more about it from other people today, and then there's a full roadmap that links more details, and you'll start sort of like getting into it. But in general, the heads up that I sort of like want to give everybody is that with this, we are also thinking about how the ecosystem should organize. Should we unlock more resources, more capital, because we have a great technical breakthrough. We have a grand vision for where we want to go. And I think we want to organize in a way that we are really operationally efficient so that we can use that additional capital and resources in the best way possible to make sure we remain the leading L2 out there that enables everyone to use Bitcoin. Thank you so much. I'm going to pause here, and other people are going to jump in and walk you through the rest of the stuff.